And we are live. Hey, everybody. I am Haley Gray, and I'm the founder here in the Women's Entrepreneur Network. And this is Wendy Byford, and she is one of our amazing When Live presenters here in the Women's Entrepreneur Network. And she is also the amazing hostess with the mostest for the 7-Figure Foundation Summit. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Wendy?
Sure. We put the summit together because we know that people set up LLCs for a reason, right? For years, for 15 years, we've set up LLCs and we've taught people how to look after them. And we know that people set them up for their businesses. And so we wanted to bring together a variety of speakers to talk to people about not just the LLC, but the business in it in a kind of a synergistic fashion. So we have 3 days for the summit. Day one is the Owner's Foundation. And in that day, it's all the things that we're supposed to think about as we're starting our business, and we probably never do until we get about 2 years into the business, find out that we're building something we really don't want because we didn't do all this work. So you're going to want to listen to those guys to find out all the things that you should be thinking about for your business to build something that you truly love. Day two is the LLC Foundation. We've got some attorneys and we've got some other people to talk about the actual entity, some asset protection, some bootstrapping your business using the tax code and a bunch of those types of topics. And then on day three, we've got the Business Foundation, and that's the sales and marketing and pricing and all of those types of topics. And that's where Haley is a featured speaker, and we're so happy to have her.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here because this is really the stuff, the soup, the nuts, the bolts that you need when you're trying to grow a business. Because so many times I see people who are running businesses, that they're several years in as a sole proprietor.
Yep. And that's not just dangerous from a liability standpoint, but it's also you can't scale as a solopreneur. It just doesn't work because you're missing out on tax benefits and you're missing out on a whole pile of other things that you need to have in place. Because when we talk about an LLC, yeah, it's a legal entity. Okay, fine. But there's all of the other pieces that go around that really get you ready to ramp your business up to that 7 figures. So when we talk about documentation, for example, today on my chat in Women's Entrepreneur Network, I did a little bit of a rant about documentation. And it's not because we say, okay, you've got to have this and this and this in place. It's because if you don't, it's not just that you're leaving yourself open to certain issues, but you're not ready to ramp. You can't take areas of your business and outsource. You can't take areas of your business and automate. You can't take areas of your business and fine tune because you don't have any of the documentation or any of the understanding of what you're doing to be able to do that. So if you're a solopreneur flying by the seat of your pants, this bad news is you're never going to get to 7 figures. I'm sorry.
Right.
Not gonna work.
You're never going to take advantage of the tax stuff. And you'll never have a separate bank account, and you'll never be able to establish business credit. And if somebody decides that they don't like you and come after you legally, sorry.
Yep.
You could have put your entire family's assets at risk.
Yep. And of course, if you are just doing things willy-nilly, the IRS can come in and say, this is really great, but you have a hobby. And if they deem that you have a hobby, then the good news is that you still get to pay taxes on your profits. The bad news is that you can't take a loss if you're ramping. So all of those wonderful expenses that you've taken to be able to get yourself ready to build a business, you get to pay for out of your pocket because hobbies can only write off as much as they earn. You can't take a loss. And so there are lots of downsides for not doing things properly. And we want to make sure that you understand all of those things. But in the summit, we realized that, you're doing this in a bigger world, if you like. There's a business out there. And so we want you to start thinking of more than just the actual entity. We want you to think about things like, how do you attract the best client for you don't be so desperate to take money from anybody who's got a checkbook, but think about who are the people that you really want to work with, that you'll bounce out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning ready to serve because you just love this business so much. What is the overwhelming why that you're doing this? When you ask people, everybody says figure out what your why is when you do a business, right? Mm-hmm. And Haley, if you're anything like me, if people say what's your why, you give them a superficial answer because A, you haven't really thought about it that deeply, and B, if you have, you really don't think it's anybody else's business what your why is anyway. So
right, exactly.
So we want you to think about the why, and the why that comes out when you've given people so many superficial answers. There's nothing more to say, and the only thing that comes out of your mouth before you think about it is the truth. And so we want you to be thinking about that. We want you to be thinking about what your values are. If you don't build a business based on your values, you're going to wake up one day and say, somebody fire me from the business I own because I can't stand this anymore. Right.
Right. And your corporate culture
absolutely
won't exist.
And that culture is so important because the culture that you build, either intentionally or unintentionally, flows down through everything. It flows down through your copy, through your graphics, through the way that you treat your clients, from the way you answer the telephone to the last thing that they do. I mean, it's everywhere. And if you aren't taking the time to build an intentional culture, then you get one by default. And if you've been in corporate America, you've probably said, I never want to build a business like that. Well, that's kind of like saying, I'm never going to be my mother, and then finding that when the kids do something, you open your mouth and your mother comes out, right?
Right. Or you look in the mirror one day and it's like you're looking back at your mother.
Right. And so that'll be the culture you build, the one that you know from corporate America that you swore you would never build. So build your culture intentionally. Think about your pricing. How valuable are you? We've got a wonderful speaker who talks about pricing, and I love her to death. She's a psychologist. And she talks about her own journey of pricing and how she figured out, how important it is to figure out what your value is and take off your limitations. We've got so many people who've actually gone through the process of understanding that success is in your mind, right? Do you remember everybody told you that, Haley? When you were starting your business, everybody said, well, success is in your brain. And your brain said, yep, that's right. And your gut said, I don't have a clue what the hell you're talking about. Right?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's no integration. And so we talk a lot about really understanding that success is in your mind from a visceral level, not just thinking it up here, but thinking it here and thinking it in your gut. And so all of these incredible speakers, people who have built several, 8-figure businesses, Tim Irway, that's his thing. He builds, 30, 35, $40 million businesses. That's his thing. He spent 90 minutes with us talking about the levers that you pull and the buttons you push as you're moving through the process of growing your business. And it's just an absolutely wonderful interview. So we have so many fantastic speakers, some of them here from When. We've got Haley and we've got Jenny Wright, who talks about list building. We've got Allison Lex, who was copywriter. We've got so many great people from When as well. So many wonderful women speakers. Usually when you see summits, there's usually this overload of men. We've got just so many wonderful women speakers for this summit. So you really want to come and listen to their wisdom. They are fabulous.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, and to me, it's important to share like the different aspects of business building and those foundational pieces of business building in particular, because it's really hard for a building to stand on a shaky foundation.
Yep, absolutely. And we want to make sure that if you go through this once and you kind of get it right, then you don't have to go back 2 years from now and say, I've got to tear everything down and do it again. Mm-hmm. There are people that I have just tremendous respect for who say that that's one of the things that they really wish they had thought about when they were building their business, because they did end up taking everything down and starting all over again because they built a business they hated.
Yeah. And that's hard, because, I will say, I have days where I don't like going to work here. in the morning because it's not fun, because there are days where you have to deal with stuff you don't like. And it's important that the days that you don't like are small in comparison to the days that you do.
Yeah. And I think it's also important that, the days where you're doing things that you really don't like, you still love the people you're dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just the work that you really don't want to do that day. And so one of the things that I found in corporate America, I was in corporate America for 30 years before I became an entrepreneur. And one of the things that I found was that the politics and the hypocrisy were killing me. And so I would get up in the morning and I was like, I hope that I have an accident on the way to work and somebody kills me. I mean, it was kind of that bad. When I got out of corporate America, I wanted to build something that not only fed me and my husband, but also fed my soul.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when you kind of take that approach as, who do I want to serve that's going to make me feel good at the end of the day? Like, yeah, I've contributed something. I've done something good. And I want to keep doing this. I want to grow it because I know that I'm making an impact on these people. I know that the people that I'm serving are wonderful people and I want to keep working with them. That's kind of where you want to be. And that's why we're in day one, we're kind of getting you to think about all of those things. And then in day two, when we're saying, okay, so now you got to build the foundation with the legal stuff. Yeah, I understand that entities are as boring as dry toast. I've been doing this for 15 years, so I kind of got that. But it's things that we need to know and things that we need to do. And if you kind of look at it from the standpoint of pieces of a puzzle, I'm putting this puzzle together and I've got a piece here and I got a piece here and, I need a piece over here. And now that I've got this puzzle kind of together, I can start giving out pieces to other people to look after. And I don't have to do this all the time. Makes it a little bit easier. Somebody once said that you only have to do something until you want to do it. So yeah, you have to do some stuff until you want to do it so that you get it right and you can hand it off to somebody else. And then day three, we get to do the fun stuff with Haley and Jenny and Allison and a bunch of other people on the sales and the marketing and the pricing and the things that you think about when you're actually growing the business. And
the sexy stuff.
Yeah, the sexy stuff, all the stuff that everybody else talks about, right? We had to put in some stuff that everybody else talks about, but we did a lot of stuff that nobody else talks about as well.
I love that. Yeah, no, and it's important to talk about the stuff that we really don't hear about a lot online. I mean, I spent probably 95% of my MBA doing the unsexy stuff.
Yep.
And, 5% doing the fun stuff, but
yeah, it's really tough. When I was doing, after I left my corporate job, I didn't want to go back and do, like take a PhD in business or something. I mean, that would have been ridiculous. But I decided what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll take a paralegal certificate. Because when I set up my LLCs for properties that I was purchasing, I found that nobody wanted to answer questions. Once the entity was set up, it was kind of like, we're done, If you got questions, well, that's tough. Go on the internet and see if you can figure it out. So I went back and I took a paralegal degree. And you want to talk about boring? Oh my God. I'm sorry, guys. If you're a paralegal, I'm sorry. But the courses were just boring as all get out. And even the business stuff, which I loved, was still boring. So, but you still have to do it. It's still stuff that you need to know. So when teaching, I'm teaching stuff that you need to know. And I know it's boring. There are times when I really wish that I could get my husband to come through with, I think it's Jim Edwards who carries around one of those unicorns, right? Because he thinks that copywriting might be boring. So he carries around this unicorn. So I wish I could get my husband to kind of come through the scene with a unicorn or something. Just to liven it up, because I know it's boring, guys, but it's stuff that you need to know, stuff that's important, because it's stuff to keep you safe, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's stuff that keeps, somebody from coming back and suing you and your business and taking everything you own.
Absolutely. Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I'm going to start a business so that somebody can come and steal everything I have. Nobody. But the thing is that people ignore the stuff they don't like, and that's all the stuff that will keep them safe. And so they wake up one morning and they're surprised that everything they have is gone. Well,
Yeah.
but you didn't listen to anything that people were trying to tell you about what you needed to do to stay safe. So that's going to happen. So
Right.
yeah, there's some boring stuff in there, but in the summit, there's a ton of really cool stuff as well. So we're hoping that you really will enjoy the vast majority of what we're bringing to you.
Well, and I think that, if you're serious about your business, this is that brain food.
Yep, it is, which is why we really say to people, look, it's a free summit. You're going to get an email every day with the link for that day's 8 speakers. And you can go in there and you can sit down and you can listen to 8 speakers. But if you're anything like me, your brain is going to shut off at a certain point. There's only so much stuff you can take in and think about before you're back on the first interview and you're trying to listen to the 5th. So the VIP pass gives you unlimited access to all 24 speakers, as much as you want to listen to them, as many times. They're up there as soon as the summit is finished. All 24 are going to be put in a VIP vault. You'll get access to the vault, and you'll also get access to, on November 5th at 4 o'clock Pacific time, my business partner, Warren Tarl, who is a CPA. Bless you.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Stop it.
And then just a fantastic tax strategist. We're going to do a webinar on planning your 2020 year end without losing your mind. We know this has been an absolutely extraordinary year. We want to make sure that you're prepared. And this is only for the VIP pass holders. Nobody else gets access to this webinar because we wanted to do something really special for you. Mostly because 20% of everything that you spend on your VIP pass is going to charity. And we want those charities to be happy. We want to send them checks. So we're hoping that you'll sign up for the VIP pass. You'll also get a 45-minute strategy call so we can find out where you are in building your foundation and what you still need to do. And if you show up for your call on time, you get an extra special gift from me. So we really hope that you're going to come and listen to all the speakers, because every single one of them has been handpicked. They're all people who are in the trenches every day doing exactly what they're talking about. These are not people who have hundreds of thousands of followers who have never actually done what they're talking about. These guys are in the trenches. That the attorney that I have who talks about LLCs, he's a litigation attorney. He's in court fighting about this stuff. So he knows what's going on. And we have this great conversation about what are the things that make his life so difficult. We have people who plan out strategies for asset protection and for steps for doing your pricing. And we've got people who build cultures every day in new businesses and all kinds of things for you. These are people who do what they do every single day. So they know what they're talking about and they have such wonderful wisdom for you.
That's wonderful. I love it. And, what would be one takeaway that you hope people will come away from this summit with?
What I want them to come away with is the fact that there are many different facets to building your business, but you don't have to do everything at once.
Mm-hmm.
So don't go into overwhelm. I know so many times what happens with people is they say, oh my goodness, I've got somebody talking about list building. I've got somebody talking about copywriting. This person's talking about sales building blocks. And oh my goodness, and I've got to do this and I've got to do this. And I haven't figured out my values yet. And all of a sudden, they're like deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
Right? And when that happens, you do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You start from where you are. You pick something that speaks to your heart and you start working on that. Mm-hmm. Then you go to the next thing, right? So just know that wherever you are is fine. There's nothing that you've done that's not fixable. There's nothing so horrible that you've managed to do with your company that screwed it up so badly it can't be fixed. So don't worry about that. Just don't go into overwhelm. Just pick something that speaks to your heart and do that. Go to the next thing, go to the next thing. And before you know it, by the time we do the summit again this time next year, you'll have gone through everything and you'll be just fine.
Yep. And I think I have a speaker for next year for you.
Perfect.
One of our One Live speakers, Susan Fessenden.
Fantastic. Yeah. We are looking for wonderful people, and we know that this is a great place to find people. That's you guys are just fantastic.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. This has been really fun.
It has been. And I really love talking to people about all of the great things that we're doing, because I think sometimes we kind of get into our own little blinkered world And we don't realize all the wonderful things that are out there. So this is a chance to get exposure to all of these great people. And you never know, you may find your next coach or the next person you want to follow right in that summit.
That's awesome. Yeah. And, you know, it's that exposure to the people that you're probably looking for anyway in your business.
Absolutely.
Very
Perfect.
cool. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. This has been fun. Bye,
Thanks.
everybody.
Take care.
Take care.